All right, future policymakers, gather round because today we're taking a deep dive into fusion energy.
Yep, a topic that's been making headlines, and trust me, it's got huge implications for India's future, particularly in the global energy landscape, something you'll want to understand, especially for those UPSC prelims and mains.
Definitely crucial stuff. So for our fellow UPSC aspirants joining us, we're diving deep into a recent article from The Hindu about, well, you guessed it, fusion. A major breakthrough in fusion research, actually, with huge implications for India's energy future.
We're talking about scientists actually trying to recreate the power of the sun right here on
Okay,
Earth.
hold on. Power of the sun. That sounds like something straight out of science fiction. What's the reality here?
It's nuclear fusion. And it's not fiction, it's a real field of research with incredible potential.
All right, break it down for us. What exactly is nuclear fusion?
Imagine like the tiniest things you can think of atoms. We're talking about two lightweight atoms fusing together to form a heavier one. And when this happens, a huge amount of energy gets released.
Like a tiny controlled explosion.
You could say that, and that's the energy source of, well, the sun
Yeah,
and all the stars out there. And now researchers in China, using their experimental advanced superconducting tokamak, or EAST reactor, they've managed to sustain super hot plasma, which is what fuels fusion, at a mind-boggling 100 million degrees Celsius for over 1,000 seconds.
oh, hold on. 100 million degrees. I mean, that's hotter than anything I can even imagine. Does this mean China's about to start powering their cities with, like, mini suns?
Haha, not quite yet. See, the EAST reactor is a type of device called a tokamak. Basically, it uses strong magnetic fields to contain this superheated plasma. It's kind of like trying to hold lightning in a bottle using magnets.
Hmm.
The immediate goal isn't to generate electricity, at least not yet, but to figure out how to achieve something called ignition.
Okay, ignition. I'm sensing another key term our UPSC friends should probably highlight. What's the deal with ignition in this fusion energy quest?
Ignition is like the holy grail of fusion research, really. It's the point where the fusion reaction becomes self-sustaining. So it produces more energy than it takes to run. Think of it like a fire that just keeps burning without needing more wood.
Ah, got it. So the East reactor is more of a stepping stone towards that ultimate goal. And this is where it gets really interesting for India, because I know we're involved in a major fusion project too, right?
Absolutely. India is actually a key partner in ITER. That's the International Thermonuclear Experimental Reactor, which is being built in France. It's a gigantic effort, bringing together 35 nations to try and crack the code of fusion energy. And ITER, it's a tokamak too, just like EAST, but much larger, much more powerful.
Wow, 35 nations. That's some serious global collaboration. But why is fusion energy such a big deal, especially for a rapidly developing nation like India?
Fusion has the potential to be a complete game changer, not just for India, but for, well, everyone. Unlike those pesky fossil fuels, which we know are finite and polluting, fusion is clean, produces hardly any waste, and the fuel source isotopes of hydrogen is abundant. It's practically a limitless clean energy source.
Okay, no more scrambling for oil and gas, no more carbon emissions. This sounds almost too good to be true.
It's an ambitious goal, no doubt. And there are some serious challenges to overcome before fusion power becomes, a practical reality. But the potential rewards, immense. It's a hot topic for a reason.
Speaking of hot topics, we've been throwing around this term isotopes. Quick refresher for anyone who needs it. What are isotopes and why do they matter for fusion?
Sure. Isotopes are basically atoms of the same element, but with a different number of neutrons. For fusion, the key players are isotopes of hydrogen.
Hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, so plenty to go around, right?
Well, sort of. You see, the most common isotope of hydrogen, it just has one proton and no neutrons. But there are also these heavier isotopes called deuterium and tritium. Deuterium has one proton and one neutron, and tritium has one proton and two neutrons. And these heavier isotopes are the essential ingredients for fusion reactions.
So even though hydrogen is everywhere, we need these specific heavier versions to make fusion work.
Got it. But hold on. Aside from getting the right fuel, what other hurdles are scientists facing in this quest for fusion power?
Well, one of the biggest challenges is actually maintaining those incredible temperatures we talked about.
Hmm.
Remember, hotter than the sun. It takes a massive amount of energy to heat the plasma to those levels, and then you have to keep it stable within the magnetic fields of the tokamak.
Yeah, I can imagine that's no easy feat. It's like Heidi trying to juggle flaming torches while riding a unicycle on a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything goes up in smoke. A vivid analogy. And on top of those temperature and stability issues, there's the challenge of tritium scarcity. You see, deuterium, that other hydrogen isotope we need, it's readily available in seawater. But tritium, it's radioactive and decays pretty quickly. We can't just, stockpile it.
So even though we're talking about hydrogen, this incredibly abundant element, the specific isotope we need, tritium, it's actually quite rare. Sounds like a potential roadblock.
It's definitely a concern. Researchers are exploring different ways to address it. One promising avenue is breeding tritium, basically creating more of it during the fusion process itself. If that becomes viable, it would significantly reduce our reliance on external sources of tritium.
Fingers crossed for that breakthrough. But even if we solve the tritium problem, we're still left with those insane temperatures and the whole tricky business of controlling the plasma, right? It's like trying to bottle lightning.
You're not wrong. It's a monumental challenge, no doubt. But the potential rewards are so great that scientists worldwide are determined to overcome these obstacles. And they're exploring various approaches to achieving fusion, not just tokamaks.
Wait, so it's not all about these donut-shaped tokamaks. What other options are there on the table?
Well, there are stellarators, for one. Imagine them like twisted tokamaks. They're designed to improve plasma confinement, and while more complex to build, they hold a lot of promise. And then there's inertial confinement fusion. That one uses powerful lasers to compress and heat the fusion fuel, a completely different approach altogether.
So it's not a one-horse race then. Multiple paths being explored to reach that fusion finish line. But with China's recent breakthrough, I'd say the competition is definitely heating up.
Absolutely. It's a global effort with brilliant minds all over the world working towards that common goal, a future powered by clean, safe, and abundant energy. And we're back, diving even deeper into this incredible world of fusion energy. Now, before we went to break, we were talking about the different approaches being explored in this global race to clean energy.
Right, right. Tokamaks, stellarators, those magnetic confinement systems.
Yeah.
We also touched on inertial confinement fusion using lasers. Now, for our UPSC aspirants out there who might be feeling a bit lost, could you break down the key differences between these approaches?
Sure. So think of magnetic confinement like trying to hold a miniature sun in a magnetic bottle. That's basically what tokamaks and stellarators are aiming for. Inertial confinement, on the other hand, it's more like trying to ignite this tiny pellet of fuel with this incredibly powerful laser beam. Each approach has its own advantages and its own set of challenges, really.
So two completely different strategies, two different paths, trying to reach that same goal, that magical moment of ignition where the fusion reaction becomes self-sustaining. With so many brilliant minds working on this, how do scientists even choose where to focus their efforts? Is there a clear frontrunner in this fusion race?
It's not exactly a clear-cut race. Each approach has its own unique hurdles to overcome. Tokamaks, those are currently the most developed technology, with projects like ITER really pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Stellarators, on the other hand, they offer potential advantages in terms of plasma stability. And then you have laser fusion, which is making significant strides as well.
Okay, so it's more like a multi-pronged attack on this problem,
Yeah.
with everyone hoping that one of these paths leads us to the fusion promised land. But let's shift gears a bit here. Let's talk about why this matters so much for India specifically. We know India's energy demands, they're skyrocketing, and we're heavily reliant on those fossil fuels. How could fusion change that equation?
Well, fusion offers India a real path towards energy independence, and of course, a cleaner, more sustainable future. Imagine a scenario where India no longer needs to import those massive amounts of oil and gas. That would be a game changer for our economy, not to mention our geopolitical standing, and of course, the environmental benefits are just undeniable.
Okay, that's huge. Something our UPSC friends should definitely be highlighting. Fusion's potential to transform India's energy landscape, reduce our dependence on those foreign imports. Let's get specific for a moment here. How could fusion energy impact various sectors of the Indian economy?
Oh, the possibilities are vast. Think about the industrial sector, which is, as you know, a major energy consumer. Fusion could provide a clean, reliable source of power for manufacturing, for production. The same goes for transportation, really. Fusion could revolutionize those electric vehicles, maybe even power public transportation systems.
So we're talking about a ripple effect across the entire economy, from heavy industries to our everyday transportation. And let's not forget about the potential for job creation. I mean, if fusion becomes a reality, it's going to create a whole new industry with tons of opportunities for scientists, engineers, technicians.
Precisely. Fusion, It has the potential to be a major economic driver, boosting innovation, creating jobs, propelling India to the forefront of the global clean energy race. It's not just about energy independence, you see. It's about technological leadership and economic prosperity.
This is fascinating stuff. Okay, I have to ask, with all these potential benefits, are there any potential downsides, any risks we should be aware of? I mean, no technology is perfect, right?
You're right. No technology is without its challenges. While fusion is often hailed as this clean energy source, there are still some potential concerns to consider. For instance, there's the issue of tritium management. Now, while it's less radioactive than a lot of the byproducts of fission, it still requires careful handling and disposal.
So it's not completely waste-free, but it sounds a whole lot better than dealing with the nuclear waste from those traditional power plants.
I'd say that's a fair assessment. The amount of radioactive waste generated by fusion, it's orders of magnitude lower than fission. However, it's still something we need to address and manage responsibly, of course. Another consideration is the sheer scale and complexity of fusion power plants. Building and operating these facilities, that's going to require some significant infrastructure investments
Yeah.
and highly skilled personnel.
Makes sense. It's not like we can just, flip a switch and suddenly have fusion power plants popping up everywhere. It's going to take a lot of planning, investment, and expertise to make this transition. But let's talk about the geopolitical angle for a moment. How could fusion energy impact India's position on the global stage?
Fusion could be a major geopolitical game changer for India. It would reduce our reliance on those energy imports from volatile regions, giving us greater strategic autonomy. It would also position India as a leader, a real leader in clean energy technology, potentially forging new partnerships and alliances with countries seeking to decarbonize their economies.
So we're not just talking about energy here. We're talking about diplomatic leverage, a chance for India to assert itself as a major player in shaping a sustainable future for the world. It's a powerful concept. But let's bring it back to the UPSC exam for a moment. What are some key takeaways our listeners should keep in mind as they prepare for prelims and mains?
First and foremost, understand the basic science behind fusion. Those two light nuclei fusing to create a heavier one, releasing energy. Then delve into the various approaches being explored, like tokamaks, stellarators, inertial confinement fusion, and of course the pros and cons of each.
Right, knowing those scientific fundamentals, that's crucial. But for mains, they'll need to go a bit deeper, right?
Absolutely. For mains, think about those broader implications of fusion energy for India. How could it impact our energy security, our economy, our environment, our geopolitical standing? These are all fertile grounds for those essay questions and in-depth analysis.
UPSC aspirants, make sure those notes are organized and those highlighters are ready. This is a topic that spans science, technology, economics, geopolitics, environmental sustainability. All key themes for the UPSC exam. But let's not get too lost in those technical details. At its core, fusion energy is about something much bigger. It's about humanity's quest for a cleaner, more sustainable future.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, collaborating on a global scale, and striving to create a world where energy is no longer a source of conflict or environmental degradation. It's a truly inspiring goal and one that's worth striving for.
And we're back for the final part of our fusion energy deep dive.
Yeah.
My brain is kind of buzzing with all these possibilities, all these challenges we've been talking about.
It definitely is a topic that really sparks the imagination. This idea of harnessing the power of the stars. It's both awe-inspiring and incredibly challenging at the same time.
Speaking of challenges, we talked about those technical hurdles, those economic hurdles, but what about the ethical side of things? With any powerful technology, you got to ask, how could it be used? Or misused even?
Yeah, that's a really important point. Fusion energy, if we can successfully develop it, it would be an incredibly powerful tool. And just like any tool, it could be used for good or for bad. I think one of the key ethical considerations here is making sure that fusion technology is developed and deployed responsibly with safeguards in place, to prevent it from being used for harmful purposes.
So it's not just about making fusion work, it's about making sure it works for the benefit of all humankind. That makes a lot of sense. But let's zoom out a bit here. If fusion power does become a reality, how do you see it reshaping the world?
Well, imagine a world where energy scarcity is a distant memory, where countries are no longer dependent on those those fossil fuels, and where clean, abundant energy powers homes, industries, transportation systems all across the globe. I mean, that's the transformative potential of fusion energy right there.
Wow, that's a pretty mind-blowing vision.
Yeah.
But along with those opportunities, there are bound to be some challenges too, right? I mean, it's shift that dramatic a shift in the global energy landscape.
Yeah.
It's got to create ripple effects across societies, across economies, across the world.
Oh, absolutely. The transition to a fusion powered world, it would be a complex process for sure, with both winners and losers, honestly. Existing industries, those built around those fossil fuels, well, they'd likely face some serious disruption, but at the same time, new industries would emerge, new job markets would be created, and the geopolitical landscape that could also be reshaped as countries start, vying for access to fusion technology, to fusion resources.
So it's not just about flipping a switch and everything's powered by fusion. It's about navigating a complex transition, managing those economic and social impacts, making sure the benefits of fusion, they're shared equitably.
Exactly. The development and deployment of fusion energy, it's going to require careful planning, international cooperation, a real focus on sustainability and social equity. It's a challenge, no doubt, but one with immense potential to create a brighter future for everyone, really.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from the science behind fusion to those challenges, those opportunities it presents for India and for the world. Any final words of wisdom for our UPSC aspirants out there before we wrap up?
Well, fusion energy, it's a complex and evolving topic, that's for sure. Stay informed, keep learning, and be prepared to adapt your understanding as new developments emerge. This is a field where breakthroughs can happen really quickly, and the implications, well, they're far-reaching.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, to all our listeners out there, keep those minds sharp, stay curious, and don't be afraid to dive deep into this fascinating world of fusion energy.
Yeah.
And remember, the source for all this information we've been discussing today, it's that insightful article from the Hindu. You can find a link to it in the show notes.
And if you found this deep dive helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future episodes. We're here to help you navigate this complex world of current affairs and of course, ace those UPSC exams.
And we love hearing from our listeners. So if you have any questions or you want to dive deeper into a specific aspect of fusion energy, drop a comment below and we'll do our best to answer them.
Until next time, keep those brains buzzing, keep exploring, and keep striving for excellence.
And keep reaching for the stars.